Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pod TV's #1 do-it-yourself advocate show, Timeshare Solution or Surrender with Irene Parker, where we provide you some do-it-yourself solutions, resources, so that you can find the solution for your timeshare deceptive act that you might be facing, or maybe you just don't know how to use your timeshare. Not every timeshare situation is a bad situation, but there are a lot of them out there, as we're finding out. And Irene's here to talk with you about it. She has spoke with thousands of people and has pointed them in the direction. We've got some real stories that will just make your hair stand on end or cry like it makes me. Everyone help me welcome Irene Parker to the 49th episode.
I can't believe it. We're closing in on 1 year of this show. It's fascinating. And we never know what's going to happen each week. So we have a couple guests that are unscheduled and a couple guests that had to cancel due to work schedules. But I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guests first. I'm first going to introduce Nicole. And Nicole, you are from Ohio?
Correct, yes.
Okay, all right. And she's here to talk about her Westgate Resort nightmare. We've had many Westgate people on here. And we also have on our screen today Josie. And Josie has, we got her camera working, but her sound is not working. So I'm holding her up, her sound voice here on speakerphone. And then we have a prior guest with us today, Anne. And Anne has volunteered to be a TARDA volunteer to support others. And it's always helpful when someone calls us to have someone on the phone with us. But I'm going to put in a commercial here for volunteers, because when we formed TARDA, we would hear from maybe 3 to 5 people a week. And since January 1, we have heard from 129 families. And Kim, since last Monday, we have our last show, we have heard from 29 additional families, including 4 active duty service members that find their security clearances in jeopardy, all reporting deceptive tactics. Last week, we had 2 attorneys on, one of them our producer, Nick, and Mike Finn has always been a strong supporter of our efforts. They talked about trade block and encore law. And I was shocked that after our January 20th show, on January 23rd, the Minnesota Attorney General announced a settlement of $279,000 against trade block, encore law, and the bizarre name of Last Resort Consulting. And so today I am equally shocked. It just seems like the spirits are with us or something. But Josephine's complaint is with Capital Resorts. And she is the second family who was told that it was just an administrative action. We need to either just change your deed to points because Capital acquired your resort, or we need to transfer into the Capital Trust. And the third family this happened to was reported on the news on January 31st, just a few days ago. So Kim, would you be able to, it's well worth listening the 3.5 minutes, and then we can subtract 3.5 minutes from Josephine because it's exactly what happened to her. So please play that if you can, Kim.
Okay, I'm waiting for it to come up. It runs a lot of ads, as you know. Here we go. Hold it. And
There were so many ads, I couldn't even find it.
Well, it repeats ads all the time. So it's what happens in this world. Everybody's got to get their 2 cents in. All right. Can you see it?
Yep.
All right. Usually I'm faster at this, but I'd like to get this up and going the right way.
There we go.
We about fell out of our seat. We could not believe it.
Tonight, Action 9 exposes a new scheme that could cost you big money.
And we're talking about $50,000 here. That's how much a local couple says they're being forced to pay. They say they were duped by a major timeshare company and then turned to consumer advisor Clark Howard and our Action 9 team for help. They told Action 9 consumer investigator Jeff Deal they had no idea they were even buying a timeshare.
Yeah, they said that they didn't know it would cost them. You see, they already had a timeshare here that was paid off, and they really enjoyed coming out here. But they claim 2 salesmen recently tricked them into signing a really bad deal. Sunshine and fresh air. Right on the water in Daytona Beach shores, the Sea Club 4 Resort was the perfect place for Sandy and Joseph Parks to enjoy their timeshare. It was originally bought by Sandy's parents decades ago, and it was fully paid for.
And we actually enjoyed it. Back when we had no money to take the kids on vacation, they would give us their week.
Even now, in their golden years, they still enjoyed it. So much so, they were intrigued when 2 men from Capital Vacations suggested a change. According to Sandy, they were told they could trade out their week for points, a move that would offer more options and flexibility to check out other Capital Vacations resorts.
Oh, they made it sound like this is great. You know, you're just switching your week to points.
Sandy and Joseph said they were bombarded with information, and despite a lengthy presentation, there was high pressure to sign documents quickly.
Never once did they say that there was going to be any cost involved.
It wasn't until weeks later a surprise bill arrived that made them take another look at their contract. Turns out it was to purchase additional timeshares for more than $55,000.
We about fell out of our seat. We could not believe it.
Not only that, they claimed the sales agents entered false information, making it appear as if they made more money than they do to get them qualified for credit cards to start paying on their new timeshares. Capital Vacations gets just over 1-star rating on Yelp. Review after review issues warnings like they will flat out lie to you. Horrible liars. Do not trust Capital Vacations. They will lie and tell you anything to get you to buy. And their salespeople are deceitful, and their contract does not align with what's verbally promised. We took the consumer concerns in these types of posts and from the parks to Capital Vacations. The company responded by email. At this time, we do not have a comment. Still, that leaves the park stuck with a $55,000 bill that they say they can't afford, and they believe Capital Vacations took advantage of their trust and their age.
I don't know how they could live with themselves. I don't know how they could sleep at night doing this to people.
And Sandy wants others to know, and this is always good advice, make sure you read and understand everything you're signing, especially if it's a timeshare contract like this that's 27 pages long. Reporting in Daytona Beach shores, Jeff Deal, Channel 9.
We're told by our physicians out there at the feed.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Kim. Josie, I bet that sounds pretty familiar.
It sure does.
Okay, 2 things before we hear your story. The American Resort Development Association, ARDA, not to be confused with, the executive consultant for Capital Vacations is the chairman of ARDA Rock, Resort Owners Coalition, that automatically bills maintenance fees, raising opt-out. Most times you have to call them to remove it, raise $5 million a year. And there has been some anti-consumer legislation that we've opposed. But to think that they purport to be the organization that protects timeshare members, and the fact that they're so closely aligned with capital. The other thing that's interesting about Josie is when we first met, I said, well, now how did you find me? She said, well, I don't know if I should say. I'm like, what do you mean? And she said, I called the FBI. And I was like, what? And the FBI actually referred her. Several years ago, we were all filing with the FBI because the definition of white collar crime is deceit, concealment, violation of trust, and bait and switch. So I think we can all agree, check, 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 check with this family we just heard about. And so the FBI referred Josephine to one of our volunteers who referred her to our organization. So we want to thank the FBI for steering people in the right direction. Now, Josie, I think everybody can hear you on my cell phone. Go ahead and tell us what you owned, how long you owned it, and what happened to result in you being on our show today.
Well, I've owned a 1 week deeded timeshare at the Sands Beach Club. And I've owned it since 1983. So that's been a long time, and I've not had any problems with the timeshare all these years until I tried to take a vacation this past summer. And I was immediately told that there was going to be an owners meeting, and I went to that, and I met with this salesperson who I wasn't sure he was a salesperson, but he was, and he continued to tell me that I was sitting on a gold mine, that this deeded week that I had was great. So he went on to say about, he drew 2 circles on his paper, and then he said to me, well, you know, you can put that in a trust. I said, what kind of trust? The only trust I know is a financial trust. So he said, no, you just put it in there. And he said, everything will be great. Well, he continued to pressure me, and he was telling me about different things, and you know, I just got so frustrated with him. I could hardly remember what he was telling me, because I just didn't know how to get out of that situation. So unfortunately, he asked me, they took my, they already had my information from the timeshare that I own there, but they opened up a credit card in my name without my permission. And then I got the bill in the mail, and that's when I started to look for some help. Got on my phone, and that's how I went. I said, well, I got to call the FBI. I mean, who else is going to help me? And then I ran into this lovely lady here, Irene, and she calmed me down. And we've been working on this for a long time. And every day I get phone calls and emails considering when am I going to pay all this money.
Well, and Josie, would you mind sharing a little bit about your situation with your husband?
Okay, I was down there with a friend because I hadn't been on vacation. It's been years. My husband is sick he's in heart failure. He has diabetes. He's now going blind. So I have to stay very close to home. Now, the reason I went down there was I just needed to get away for a little bit, and I had to have my daughter take a week's vacation to come over here to care for him. I promised him I would never put him in a facility. So that's why I ended up down there with this facade, and it was just heartbreaking.
And he's 88 years old, correct?
He's 88, yes.
Oh my
and
gosh.
He's going blind now.
Okay, and Josie has been remarkable in her efforts to resolve this. Of the 3 families that this has happened to, the first family did resolve. Okay, so Capital worked with that family, so I don't want to go into the details. We try to respect the, once people resolve their dispute, they're not real comfortable coming back on the show because you usually have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, agreeing that you'll never say anything negative about the company. And I said, well, that doesn't prevent you from saying something positive about the company. So we just want to improve communications. But what's remarkable about Josie but before we go to what we did to follow our process, he also talked about refinancing it, Josie. It was 15% interest rate.
Oh, yes, 15% interest rate. But then he told me, don't worry about that because you won't have to pay that because I got a friend that'll get you 6%.
And
well, go ahead.
what was different about you and the other family that reached out to me is they had no idea they had bought anything. But you were aware that you had signed a contract for $21,000, correct?
At the end, I was, because they took me into a private room and recorded my answers. And it was just kind of sad.
Okay, so you knew you were paying $21,000, but you believe that was just that it was required to transfer your deeded week into the trust?
Well, I didn't realize that they were trying to sell me points. I just didn't know that. They never mentioned points.
So you thought that the 21,000 was required to transfer the points into the trust?
Yes.
And they never said the word points during the entire?
Never.
Okay.
Not once.
Okay. All right. Now, here's where it gets very interesting because you charged $4,322 to a Barclay card. You said you were not aware they opened, correct?
No, I said I did not charge that on the account. They did that and they opened it. I did not open that charge.
Probably somewhere in your paperwork, you unwittingly authorized that. Okay.
More than likely.
Yeah. Okay. So then you financed $12,968. Now, I've had people say that they contacted a law firm and the law firm said, we can help you with the timeshare loan, but we can't help you with the credit card. You need to just go ahead and pay that off. But you opted to default on the credit card payment, right?
I immediately decided that I was going to call them and close it.
Okay.
Because I did not give them approval to open it or to put anything on there. I thought that was a crime.
Okay.
So that's what I did. I never opened this credit card. I never activated it. It's still in the file here, and I tried to get that all erased.
Okay, and the credit card companies are way more aggressive. They will send you a subpoena and take you to court for $4,000. I've had that happen. It was a senior, she was single, and she actually went to court on her own behalf and negotiated them down to like, I don't know, $2,500 instead of $4,500. So you called me on January 28th. You first received a call from Barclays on Saturday, the 25th, I think, and you were afraid that it wasn't Barclays. Tell us what happened with that call.
Oh, I thought it was a crank, but on Saturday, about I want to say about noon or so, the phone rang and it was it said the bank. It was on the readout. So I said, well, I better pick that up. So I picked it up, and the guy was asking me, did I claim that this was a fraud? And he was kind of shaky with his voice, and I really couldn't understand him. However, he did clear it up, and I told him I never opened that charge. I never gave anybody permission to open it. And how dare they put $4,400 on a charge with my name on it? So I disputed it. I shut the charge down, and I won the case. They sent me a letter that I'm all good.
Well, and then on the that was Saturday, and then
Yes.
you called me on Tuesday, very upset, and I guess it just processed or something. And I said, and you were afraid it was, you mentioned to me then you thought it was a sales agent trying to pull something. And so I said, well, let's call the number together. So you and I got on the phone together with Barclays. We spoke to yeah, it was an Indian name, and he was actually very nice.
Yes, he was.
And we have written up what happened to you. We have sent it to Capital, and we have so he asked you to fax. I think the report is now 4 pages long, and he asked you to fax that to Barclays. And did you do that?
I did that.
Okay, so that's on record. Now it gets even more bizarre. Okay, so this is, you received and I've never heard of this before. Maybe people are just not telling me, but on August 26th of 2024, you received a financing statement from the Michigan State Department UCC filing office listing you as a debtor, filed by Capital Resorts, asking for an affidavit stating the debt is false, or an information statement. Well, now we're bordering on to legal advice. So I said, we have attorneys that donate their time to just answer a quick question that we can't answer. So you spoke to that attorney, and he said, well, it's hard to say the debt is false. So I said, well, let's file an information statement. Now, I have an MBA. Your husband's 88. You're his caregiver. I almost lost my mind trying to help you with that because it was so confusing, and we even had to call them, but we did file an information statement from them. So now what I think we can do, come on, Capital. This is ridiculous. This is the third family this happened to. And what it's kind of like they tweaked it, because this has been going on a long time, where it was Diamond Resorts that you had a Monarch deed or a Gold Key deed or a Sunterra deed. We had an ILX deed, and you must convert your deed to points. You must do that. Well, that's not always accurate. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have you reach out to that reporter in that. And now they want to do a story about Florida because they're Orlando reporters. So we do want to let them know that we appreciate the reporting that they did, because I don't see how you could not be more credible after that. Now, now let's go ahead and move on to Nicole. And Nicole, you are in Ohio.
Yes.
And Josie, what state are you in?
Michigan.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I knew that. Okay, so Nicole, go ahead and share with us the following our process and your experience with Westgate Resort. But before you get started, there is a broken record complaint, and I think, Josie, you might have even mentioned this, where volunteers did a public records request, and they were able to discover through public records or 585 complaints filed about Westgate, and nearly half of them, I think 251, complained about being told they could rent to offset costs. That's part of your complaint as well. But go ahead and let us know how you became involved with Westgate and what has happened thus far.
Okay, so I had went on vacation to Tennessee, and on our way back home, we got stopped to go see a 90-minute tour. It was never suggested it was a timeshare, so we went into Westgate. That 90 minutes turned into over 7 hours. And about 5 hours, I kept saying no because, they try to give us the great, oh, your maintenance fees won't go up. Your children's going to love this. I kept declining. I didn't want anything to do with it. And then all of a sudden, then they started going into details about, oh, you can sell these getaways and make money on the side. No hidden fees. Your maintenance fees wouldn't go up. All this, they never spoke about any extra fee to bring your dog, no extra additional cleaning fee. We split up our weeks, nothing like that. So they kind of got my friend excited about, making more money, selling the getaways. He gave examples that a guy bought one and that's what he did as his job is he would get getaways and sell them for like $1,000, $2,000. And even though he only purchased them for like $359. So after trying to get up and leave, finally I got talked in by my friend to sign up. And then so of course, like I signed up, I asked for my paperwork because I wanted to look over it. And of course he said it was going to be in the mail. And I was like, what? But again, you can mail a USB drive. So I figured, and they told me to come back the next day. So here I went back the next day, like, okay, maybe they have some stuff for me. Well, it was just promotional information to, get people to come in for them. And then we kind of like left. They never told me that my paperwork was in that promotional pamphlet. And it was in the back and it was completely like packaging taped. Like I had to cut it open with a knife to be able to even get to it. And I didn't even know it was in the back of that folder. So after not even a week, I called the closing officer and I explained like, hey, I want to see my stuff. He yet again told me again, don't do anything until your paperwork comes in the mail. So that was twice. I was told it was going to be in the mail from him. And then I started noticing like I didn't get my paperwork. They told me I could come back in September, October. When I called to try and schedule, I was not able to come back. So it started, clicking, like none of the stuff is adding up.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I was like, okay. Also, they told me that if I decided I didn't want the timeshare that I could call and they would sell it for me. So when I called, all they did was send me some paperwork, so I had to sell it. And I'm like, I'm not a realtor. I have no idea what to do with this. And so that's when I started writing up complaints in October. And then I got with Irene, like told my story. And then also the credit card, they did sign me up for a credit card as well. And then I seen on Credit Karma, they changed my income from making less than 40,000 to over 70,200 to be able to get me approved.
Just like the people on the video we started with. Yes. And
So,
you complained about that to them, didn't you? And you received a bizarre response.
I did. They said, as the consumer, it's your responsibility to provide accurate information, even though that the income form, they crossed everything out and I didn't even write anything on it because I told them what I made and they changed it.
Well, so what you need to do is you need to file a rebuttal to explain that you were not the one that crossed that out. Obviously, why would you do that? Now, you mentioned about not being able to find the USB port. There is a Facebook group called Westgate Timeshare Hostages. Are you a member of that?
Yes.
Okay, so that was launched I think at the end of 2021. She was embarrassed because she was a virtual assistant for a real estate agent. So she came up with the name Ben Dover. Ben has two N's. And because she is a virtual assistant for a realtor, they are to provide you a public offering statement. And I think back then it said at the beginning, read this carefully before signing. And she did a 5-minute video of what it took for her to locate at that time it was CDs, where there was a pocket for the CD but it wasn't there. And it was in a kind of a hidden zipper behind this zipper. And then she went through she had to go through like 30 computer files. I still have that video. We should play that sometime, where in order to see the public offering statement. So now have you filed with the Tennessee Attorney General?
Yes, I have, but I have not heard anything back. I did get an email that they are working on it.
Well, they're very good too. Now, I'm going to talk about, I really, you and Angela was supposed to be on our show today, but her work schedule changed and she couldn't make it. And I told her not only is her complaint in the top 10 disturbing, it includes revolting. And she accepted a promotion. And they said that they insisted her fiance come. So the presentation started. We have a week that we can sell you for $12,000. The original price was $200,000. At which point her fiance stood up and said, "If you want to stay here and listen to this crap, fine. I'm leaving." So she decided to stay to get the gift. And she explained that she had been laid off from her job. She had no income. Well, so then the manager said, "Oh, you'd be able to sell this for $60,000, which you've learned is ridiculous." And then she said, "I'm not comfortable because I lost my job. I don't even know how I could afford to pay this." In your contract are instructions on how to cancel, to send a certified return receipt to the headquarters. If you go to the resort sales center, they could trick you into thinking you canceled when you didn't. So the closing agent said, now she asked about canceling. "If you want to cancel, you must call me. Do not send a text. Do not send an email." So she called him the next day to cancel, and he hand wrote a fake cancellation number. And so she has that in her report. And then she sent this to Westgate, or when she talked to them, they said, "Well, we have no cancellation. You would have had to send it certified mail, and the instructions are in your contract." And just like you, Nicole, that she was not given a copy of the contract. She was given a bag she thought had the documents in it, but it was a gift certificates and referral package and things like that. So and then this is the worst part. Okay, this is why I try not to take calls before going to bed at night or keep any hammers by my computer. He said to her, and I'll go ahead, his name was Edgar, said to her, "You need to get a better man. You have a nice body and nice eyes. You should move to Las Vegas. You could become a stripper and make a lot of money." There are no words. But then she was also told, she reported that they told her she could rent getaway weeks for $5,000 a week. Now, Kimberly sent me the most remarkable scam recording I think I've ever had with a very sophisticated actor that said, "If you buy 6 getaway weeks for $99 to $399, we can turn around and guarantee you a check for $8,400 to rent those out, because there's all these conventions in Orlando." And then when I went to their website, they have 6 listings for $1,400. Kim, do you want to add anything about?
No, I just do the math, right? He was pushing. This is not the first time I got the call, but the first time I got I've recorded it more than once, but I'll ask them, can you send me the contract? That sounds too good to be true. Oh, everyone's different. You have to give us your credit card first. And then after we, scan it and get it into the system, if you decide you don't want it, then you don't have to take it. And I know that's not true. That's not how they work. But yeah, I mean, you could hear him in the conversation, the way he tried to twist and convince me that I can take, because I own something, I can take the extra points that they give me every year, which they don't. You have to buy, but you're allowed, supposedly, I guess you're allowed to buy up to 6 weeks. And what they do is they promise you if you pay for them, they'll resell them for you, and they won't. They won't.
No.
And I know that, but what a scam. I have to pay him, 300 and whatever
Up front.
right at the top. And then he goes and it ended up being 3,000. I pay him 3,000. They get me 8,000. This doesn't happen in the real world, people. This doesn't exist. Occasionally you can get lucky with stocks and betting on a horse, but this is the biggest scam I've ever seen in my life. And they all should be arrested. Every one of them.
And they told you that they would have that check for you in 90 days. And when I
90
checked the
days.
BBB side, the Better Business Bureau, the two complaints were when it was 90 days and they contacted them, they said, oh, it's going to be 180 days. It will be another 90 days.
Right.
So it's like, this is just,
but anything after 90 days, you can't get back on your credit card. So you can do it in 30, 60, but you can't after 90.
Yeah.
So actually, it's hard at 60 because banks seem to think that everybody reconciles their accounts every month, and but you should. But the thing is that if you wait that long, you have no recourse, and you will not get that money back. You cannot report it as a scam on your credit card. So,
well, and then
the game.
Yeah, and Nicole, when you first sent me what you had written, you at the very top talked about how you had 60, if they did not respond within 60 days, you could file an arbitration case, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So I said, that's really doesn't help you much because they know that arbitration's kind of a kangaroo court. One family, it wasn't Westgate, but they filed a $5,000 loan, and the judgment against them was $95,000. They were ordered to pay $79,000 of the resort's arbitration fees. But you also said in your report that you opted out of arbitration.
So what it is, it's called the Silver Program. And if you sign up for the Silver Program, so that's what gets you the free water park, and what I thought I was getting in my contract originally, you got the free water park, all the stuff. But now, because I'm not signing up for the Silver Program, because that opts you out of arbitration, now I don't have any incentives with Westgate. Like, I don't even get the water park for free. Like, we're going to have to pay if we were to win.
Okay, so Kim, you won't believe this, but Westgate was sued, accused of violating the Military Lending Act. The Military Lending Act prohibits arbitration. That suit was filed February 2nd of either 21 or 2022, but as of February 1, the day before, the benefits you're describing are called WOW.
Yes.
World of Westgate benefits. And in order to be able to access those benefits, you had to agree to an arbitration clause. Now, BB&T lost a lawsuit where they tried to slip in an arbitration clause after the fact. But now, if you have a new contract, though, I'd like for you to check and see if there's an arbitration clause in the contract, because they typically, I know with Diamond Resorts, you have 30 days, I think, to opt out, 30 or 60 to opt out of arbitration. No one does. When you open a credit card, there's, and they say that they make that opt out to give it more teeth. because you could tell a judge, well, they could have opted out. So I'd like for you to check your, because that, wow, in order to access those benefits, that was, I believe, for people who signed contracts before they added the arbitration clause to the contract. So if you could check that for me. Now, Nicole, have you stopped making payments?
Yes, I did stop making payments.
Okay, when did you stop?
I did. It was due on January 13th.
Okay, so you've missed your first payment.
Yes.
Okay, and okay, have you gotten any calls yet?
No, they said, well, before when I had called, they said it takes 20 days before
before you're delinquent.
Yeah.
In Florida, if you bought in Tennessee, it's probably the same, but I know in Florida, it's non-judicial foreclosure. And the 4 steps are notice of delinquency, notice of default, notice of intent to lien, notice of intent to sell. So we have a support group for people that really are left with no choice but to like, you know, Josie stopped making payments, you stopped making payments, and you've stopped making payments. And we won't go over the details of your complaint, which was against Hilton, because it was one of the most confusing complaints I think I've heard. This is the 3rd time you've been on the show. The first time I think I heard the word confusing. It was confusing. I was confused about 5 times. And then you did sign up with an exit company and paid them $14,000, correct?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. And so you, in order for me to know what's going on.
Before you continue on, I want to say something to Nicole about
Sure.
things and to the group here. One, some of these contracts really annoy me because by law, most laws that I have been taught, and I'm not a lawyer, but this is what attorneys have taught me over time. I've been in business for over 40 years, that no contract can ask you to waive your rights to sue and how you sue until you had a reason to sue. So in other words, they can't determine whether you will have a right to sue or not. So some of these things about you can do arbitration or you can't, or you can sue, you can't, I'm almost thinking violates. We would have to really have a good attorney on this area. But I think that it truly violates a person's rights to begin with. And then the value of consideration, going back to Nicole, this is something our friend attorney taught me, was the value of consideration of what you purchased. And if they're taking away something of value of the reason why you purchased it, then, that might be something. But one more thing that's just hit me really hard in this conversation is what happened to me. And I hadn't had an income in 2, 3, 4 years, actually. But when my husband died, none. Right. So it was almost 2 years when I was there. Well, it was 1 year, 2 year. Anyway, I was there for my husband's, the anniversary of his death. So I was very intoxicated. But I remember telling them, I haven't been employed in a long time. I have no income, Somehow or another, when they filled out an application for me, and Nicole, might be a fight point for you. You don't fill out the form. They do it for you on this electronic thing. And they have everything there based on the information you already gave them, your driver's license. They already ran a check on your credit score probably, because while you're talking to the salesman, somebody else has got your stuff. But I remember telling them I have no income. And they said, don't worry, we got this. And of course, we know my whole thing was a complete scam because I was totally intoxicated when I was in there. But they put that I made this exuberant amount of income I haven't seen in years. So maybe they pulled it from a past career of mine, but they put this horrible amount on there that I made. And I think I heard you say the same thing. Am I right, Nicole?
Yes. And what I'm thinking is they were trying to base my income with my friend's income because he is the one who makes good money. I don't. And so that's where I think that they try to add some of his on mine, but he didn't sign on the contract with me. So it should have just been based on my income.
And when you were in there, who's actually filling out the form?
They were filling out the form. But the
Yeah.
form they crossed out. Like all I did was write my name, my social security number, my address, and then they crossed the rest of the stuff out. Nothing was ever filled out. They just asked me my income.
And then they had you sign it. Yeah, I mean, they used, I remember an electronic pad to get me to do a lot of things. I didn't even know I was getting a credit card, to be honest with you. I signed a lot of things that they pointed to me to sign. I, look back and I wish I had recorded the conversations, but yeah, I mean, I think that they do this quite often, Irene, that they.
Well, but the Tennessee Attorney General, who I consider to be a pro-consumer Attorney General, unlike Florida and Nevada, that just seems to pass the complaint on to the company. The company sends the contract back. Everything looks fine. The T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. So when I was manager of Senior versus Crime, a special project of the Florida Attorney General's office in Duval County, Florida, the supervisor of the timeshare division, DPPR, said we cannot mediate a dispute and we cannot force them to cancel a contract. Well, I don't think any attorney general can enforce them, but I would say with the Tennessee Attorney General, they definitely helped you to mediate, didn't they, Kim?
So Illinois did right off the bat.
Oh, Illinois, right.
Yeah. Because mine was done in Chicago. So Illinois, that guy is phenomenal. People in Illinois are more pro people than they are corporations. I'm loving what they're doing right now. Not just for me, but like for their people. But yeah, Illinois jumped on it, had me a settlement in no time at all. But I think it also helped that I had pressure coming in from the Irene, Foundation and some other people because I just met Irene, and so she sent a letter. He had already sent a letter, but it didn't seem like it was going anywhere. But maybe they got hit 4 different ways, but North Carolina, they kind of do the same thing like what you said, where they'll send, hey, this is the accusations we have and all the evidence to back it up. They'll probably do the, can you give us a reply back, or why haven't you done anything yet? So I think Illinois is probably the best I've ever seen. He really pushed to get a settlement for me. The problem was, they sent a settlement letter. They sent me a contract. I signed it and did everything they told me to do instantly. And that was last April, May. We started the settlement process in January when I met you. So it's been over a year and they still haven't complied to their own terms. They wrote the terms and they haven't complied to their own terms.
Well, and to Anne, you had tell us you stopped paying. When did you stop? When did you sign up with the exit company? When did you stop paying? And I was astonished that the exit company did not have you file with the Hawaii Attorney General, because they are very pro-consumer. So and this is Hilton, when did you, and I'll just real briefly, you were very specific that you wanted to go to Hawaii only the first week of January, which of course is a very high demand week. And then you had 2 upsells to try to achieve that goal, which never got achieved. So you paid an exit company $14,000. There are some exit, not many, but there's a couple exit companies that I feel are trying to do the right thing. So I wouldn't say so much a scam, but just pretty shoddy workmanship. Tell us after when you retained them, when you stopped paying, what they had you do, because I know our report, when I took the time to listen to everything that happened, was about 2 pages, and theirs was about 2 paragraphs. So fill us in on what's happened since you've been on the show.
Okay, so I guess in May we contacted the exit company.
May of 2024.
Yeah, May of 2024, and then we stopped paying. We stopped paying in June, I believe, to Hilton. In the meantime, the exit company sent me emails, and we would copy and paste the emails and send it to Hilton, which went on for, it seemed like years more than just months. It seems like it never just stopped. Anyway, eventually we just stopped paying Hilton, and we were still in contact with the exit company, and they go, well, just keep doing this and keep doing this. But I think it was just something they just sent out to everybody. I put my specific information in, and they just go, oh, just redo this. You didn't do this. I did do that. So it was just that alone was frustrating. Anyway, we ended up defaulting in June. Okay. Yes, and our credit got hit pretty hard, but we're okay with that because we're in a situation that we pay all our bills on time, and
Well, and I would just like to say we focus so much on the elderly and senior financial abuse. And Nicole, I always feel like we need a younger person hotline, because we're kind of set, us old folks. Our houses are paid for, our cars are paid for, our kids have graduated college, and for young people, where it can. And if there's one reason why I do this, it's when I learned how many active duty service members are finding their security clearances in jeopardy. And Nicole, does the drop in your credit score, well, it probably hasn't happened yet, but is that going to be significant impact for you?
I don't think so. My credit score is at 850 right now, so I heard it's going to be like 100 points. But like she was saying, I pay my credit cards off on time every month, so my credit typically jumps up. So if it goes down for something minor, in like 3 months, it jumps back up.
Well, it can go down 200 points. But one thing that's very important with the Military Lending Act that I feel applies to all purchasers is the 11th. I just love to quote Judge Dalton in Florida. I was there at oral arguments where, so when I check out of a timeshare, I can't leave my underwear or toothpaste, to make the point that a timeshare stay is not a residential stay, because the Military Lending Act exempts home mortgages. Kim's sister Kelly has been on the show. She's a credit repair expert. And Fannie Mae, NCUA, the National Credit Union Administration, they say it's not a mortgage. And now you have Westgate appealed. They lost the appeal. And so you had the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. I was there too, with an active duty service member, Taya, who was our very first guest on the show, February 26, 2024. So if Kelly's said that one thing that can help your credit score is to challenge that it is not a mortgage. So it was plenty of support with Fannie Mae and NCUA, but I don't see how it doesn't get any better. It gets a lot better with the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals saying it's not a mortgage. And so, Anne, where are you headed from here? Are you in contact with the exit company?
I am in contact with them, and they have not answered me back. I mean, they answered me back once saying to resend what I sent before. But then I sent them a letter back asking for a refund, and showed the first letter that they had us send, and then the letter that we worked out together to send, to see the difference, because it's huge. I mean, there's so much information on the ones we did, and there's this little paragraph on the ones they did. So, but I have not heard back from them from my last one.
Well, what sent me through the roof is the you sent me what they helped you prepare, and all it said was they told me I could go to Hawaii, but I couldn't. And I'm like, wait a minute, of course you could go to Hawaii, which is what Hilton said when they received that, because you can. But they missed the very detailed original purchase, upsell, trying to get that first week. And we have a couple volunteers who are former timeshare sales agents. We've had 2 of them on our show. Both of them are honest. And if you had met with them, they would say it's pretty hard to guarantee that you're going to get that first week of the year. You need to be more flexible than that. So I think that this is just wonderful, Kim. As we approach a year for this show, I have been so surprised at the number of people that reach out to us saying, I saw Pod TV, I saw this podcast or that podcast. And if somebody now, like Nicole, in your situation, we had Tracy on, who was nervous breakdown material on our show. She was just devastated. She was calling bankruptcy attorneys. And we said, no. Attorney Mike Finn said, never file for bankruptcy, because if timeshare is your only debt, after 7 years, it may take out the loan, but you still own it. And so sure enough, we had her on, and then we had her on like 4 months later. She was like a metamorphosis to such a confident person, saying, I was lied to. I know I was lied to, and I'm fighting this, and I'm not going to let this ruin my life. So we're hoping, Nicole, you be on our show 6 Friday. These are fluid situations, and this is reality timeshare TV for sure. So it looks like we're down to our last 3 minutes. So Josie, we've got some work to do for you. I think we're going to, I think you should reach out to Capital again, and we might even want to call Barclays again and say, have you reviewed our report? Because this is just getting out of hand. Do you want to add anything before we end today?
Oh, not at this moment.
Oh, I forgot, you're right here. But
yeah,
yeah,
no, I'm thinking.
Yeah, you did a really great job in letting us know what happened, and Nicole, you did as well. And we hope both of you continue to pay it forward by being support for others. And Anne, thank you for being a volunteer. It's just so much helpful for me. And what we could use volunteers for sure. And people ask me, what's the criteria? I said, well, it's pretty hard. You have to answer the phone when it rings. There's not many people that do that, because when someone calls me and they're all desperate and I'm listening and I say, hey, I have somebody else from Hilton that's gone through this, and can I bring her on the phone? I don't even want to make them wait to leave a recorded message and go back and forth. So I appreciate your willingness to listen to others. And I need somebody to learn how to help people compose these reports. We have a board of directors of 9 people, but I'm the only one with the time, enough time, and the training. I asked you, Anne, if you're a writer, and you flat out said no.
So I want to add, it's not just about writing and drafting it, because Irene is actually one of the better ones. We can start utilizing AI to do that. It's about collecting the data, just making sure that we give you the right information and the right setup. I know Irene has some forms that people can go to figure out what kind of data is necessary, because once you get the right data in, composing all of that is a lot faster and easier. Also, just making sure that you write to your representatives and just say you're sick and tired of this, that laws need to be changed. And when Irene needs people to sign things, not giving away money, but just her support to go change the laws or to go get done what we need done, That's the biggest help, is when we unite together to make this happen.
And the CFPB director just resigned, I heard. I think that might be Rohit Chopra, but I haven't checked into that. But you can tell your story with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Just search Tell Your Story. Josephine, I definitely want you to tell your story, and Nicole and to the CFPB. So it looks like we're almost out of time, Kim. Thank you so much for your professionalism to help us with this show.
We'll see
Kim.
you. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon. I guess that was my cue.
Next
week,
Thank you for letting us be on here.
Yeah, 1 p.m. Thank you, Eastern Standard Time.